Jack Morrison woke up with the sun every morning on New Eden. The small farming colony was quiet and peaceful, just the way he liked it. He had been living here for 5 years now, and every day felt like a gift. No alarms blaring, no emergency calls, no soldiers running to battle stations. Just the gentle sound of wind through the wheat fields and the distant laughter of children playing in the village square. He stretched his arms and walked to the kitchen window. Outside, his small farm stretched across 20 acres of rich soil. Corn grew tall in neat rows, and apple trees heavy with fruit dotted the landscape. It was nothing like the cold metal walls of a starship or the harsh lights of a military command center. This was home. Jack had been a different man 5 years ago. Back then, everyone called him Admiral Morrison. He commanded the largest fleet in human history during the war with the Zephyrians. The enemy had blue skin and spoke in clicking sounds, but they fought just as hard as humans did. The war lasted 3 years and killed millions of people on both sides. Cities burned, ships exploded in the darkness of space, and good people died far from home, but that was over now. The war ended when both sides realized they were destroying each other for no good reason. Peace talks began, and slowly, carefully, humans and Zephyrians learned to live together. Some even became friends. Jack poured himself coffee and walked. Outside, the air smelled like fresh grass and blooming flowers. He had built this house with his own hands, using wood from the local forest and stone from the nearby mountains. It was simple but comfortable, with a wide porch where he could sit and watch the sunset. "Morning, Jack," called a voice from the road. It was Ben Parker, who ran the general store in town. He drove his old truck past the farm every morning, bringing supplies to the outer settlements. "Morning, Ben," Jack replied with a wave. "How's the family?" "Good, good. Little Amy lost her first tooth yesterday. She's convinced the tooth fairy is going to bring her a new bicycle." Jack smiled. These were the conversations he loved now. Simple talk about simple things. No battle plans, no casualty reports. No decisions that would send young men and women to their deaths. After Ben drove away, Jack walked through his fields. The corn was growing well this year. He would have enough to sell at the market and still feed half the colony. Farming was honest work that helped people instead of hurting them. When he planted seeds, life grew. When he commanded fleets, people died. Around noon, a familiar figure walked up the dirt path to his house. Lisa Carter moved with the easy confidence of someone who had been a soldier but was now at peace. She carried a picnic basket in one hand and wore a simple blue dress instead of a military uniform. "Thought you might be hungry," she said with a smile. Lisa had been his second in command during the war. Commander Carter, they called her then. She was the best tactical officer in the fleet and saved his life more times than he could count. Now she ran the colony's small security force, making sure everyone stayed safe from wild animals and settling disputes between neighbors. They sat on the porch and shared sandwiches and cold lemonade. Lisa talked about her work at the security office. Yesterday she had to rescue a cat from a tree and help old Mr. Johnson fix his broken fence. The day before that, she mediated an argument between two farmers about water rights. "Remember when our biggest worry was whether the Zephyrian fleet would attack the supply lines near Centauri?" Lisa asked. Jack nodded. "Now we worry about whether it will rain enough for the crops." "I like this better," Lisa said quietly. "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Both of them had lost friends in the war. Good people who believed in protecting Earth and the colonies. Jack still saw their faces sometimes in his dreams. Captain Rodriguez, who died when his ship exploded. Lieutenant Hayes, who saved a transport full of civilians but didn't make it. Al herself, so many others. That was why Jack chose this life. He promised himself and the memory of his fallen soldiers that he would never again lead people into battle. War was sometimes necessary, but it always came with a terrible price. Someone else could make those decisions now. Someone else could carry that weight. In the afternoon, Jack taught his weekly class at the local school. 20 children, both human and Zephyrian, sat in a circle while he told them about the stars. He talked about the different planets humans had discovered, the beautiful nebulae that painted space in brilliant colors, and the amazing creatures that lived on distant worlds. Mr. Morrison, asked a small Zephyrian girl named Kira, why did humans and Zephyrians fight each other? Jack thought carefully before answering. Sometimes people fight because they're afraid of each other. They don't understand that being different doesn't mean being enemies. The war happened because both sides forgot that we're all just people trying to live good lives. But you helped stop the war, right? Asked Tommy, a human boy with freckles and missing front teeth. A lot of people helped stop the war, Jack said. The important thing is that it's over now. You children will grow up in a galaxy where humans and Zephyrians are friends. That's what matters. After class, Jack walked home through the town center. New Eden was small but bustling with activity. The marketplace was full of vendors selling everything from fresh vegetables to handmade furniture. Human and Zephyrian children played together in the park. Adults from both species worked side by side in shops and offices. This was what peace looked like. Not the absence of conflict, but people choosing to build something better together. That evening, Jack was tending his garden when he heard the sound of an approaching aircraft. He looked up to see a military transport landing in the field behind his house. His heart sank a little. Military visits were rare on New Eden, and they usually meant bad news. A young man in a crisp uniform climbed out of the transport. Jack recognized him immediately. Captain Danny Wright had been his tactical officer during the final year of the war. Danny was smart, brave, and absolutely loyal. He was also one of the few people who knew where Jack lived. Admiral Morrison, Danny said, standing at attention. Just Jack now, Jack replied. What brings you to New Eden, Danny? Danny's face was serious. I'm sorry to bother you, sir. I know you wanted to be left alone, but something's happening. Something big. Jack felt a familiar knot form in his stomach. Come inside. Tell me what's wrong. They sat in Jack's small living room. Danny pulled out a secure tablet and showed Jack a series of images. They were pictures of space, but something was wrong. Where there should have been stars, there were only empty patches of darkness. These are deep space monitoring stations in the outer rim, Danny explained. 3 star systems have gone dark in the past month. No communication, no energy signatures, nothing. It's like they just disappeared. Jack studied the images carefully. Equipment failure? Solar flares? That's what we thought at first. But then we sent scout ships to investigate. They found the planets, but they were completely lifeless. No cities, no people, no trace that anyone had ever lived there. But the strange thing is, the planets show signs of recent habitation. There are roads, buildings, even vehicles, but no people. Any idea what could cause that? Danny shook his head. Nothing in our experience. The attack patterns don't match Zephyrian technology. Actually, they don't match any known alien technology. Central Command is putting together a task force to investigate, and they want you to lead it. Jack stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over his peaceful farm. The corn swayed gently in the evening breeze, and fireflies were beginning to dance in the growing darkness. I'm retired, Danny. I grow crops now. I teach children about stars. I don't fight wars anymore. Sir, with respect, you're the best tactical mind in the fleet. If there's a new threat out there, we need someone who can figure out how to stop it. Jack turned back to face the young captain. There are other good officers. Admiral Stone is competent. General Martinez has a good record. They don't need me. Danny was quiet for a moment. Then he said, what if it's not just a few outer colonies? What if whatever is doing this decides to target the inner systems? Earth? New Eden? Jack felt something cold settle in his chest. He had worked so hard to build this peaceful life. He had promised himself that his fighting days were over. But if there was a threat to innocent people, could he really stand by and do nothing? I need time to think, he said finally. Danny nodded and stood up. Of course, sir. I'll be at the colony's guest quarters if you need me. But, sir, he paused. At the door. Whatever's out there, it's not going to wait for us to figure it out. People are disappearing, and we don't know why. After Danny left, Jack sat on his porch and stared up at the stars. They looked peaceful from here, just tiny points of light in the darkness, But he knew better. Space was vast and full of dangers. Somewhere out there, something was hunting innocent people. He thought about his promise to never lead soldiers into battle again. But he also thought about the children in his class, human and Zephyrian alike. They deserved to grow up in a safe galaxy. They deserved the chance to build their own peaceful lives. Jack Morrison had promised peace, but sometimes peace needed to be protected. Jack Morrison barely slept that night. He kept thinking about what Danny Wright had told him about the missing colonies. 3 whole star systems with no trace of life. It didn't make sense. People didn't just disappear like that. He got up before dawn and made coffee. The house felt too quiet, too empty. Outside, his farm looked the same as always, but everything felt different now. The peace he had worked so hard to build suddenly seemed fragile, like a soap bubble that could pop at any moment. At breakfast, he tried to focus on normal things. He read the local news on his tablet. The weather would be good for the harvest. The school was planning a new playground. Mrs. Chun's bakery was having a sale on apple pies. Simple, peaceful news from a simple, peaceful place, but his mind kept drifting to those empty planets. What could make entire populations disappear without a trace? Even during the war with the Zephyrians, there were always signs of battle. Destroyed buildings, crashed ships, graves for the fallen. This was different. This was like the people had simply vanished into thin air. Around noon, the emergency sirens began to wail. Jack had never heard them before on New Eden. The colony was too peaceful, too far from any danger. He stepped outside and saw people running toward the town center. Children were crying. Adults looked scared and confused. Jack ran to the security office where Lisa Carter was trying to calm a crowd of worried colonists. She saw him coming and relief spread across her face. "Jack, thank God you're here," she said, pulling him aside. "We just got a distress call from the mining station at Kepler 442b. It's bad." She handed him a communication device. The signal was weak and full of static, but Jack could make out a terrified voice. "This is Commander Pete Jackson at Kepler Station. We have unknown contacts approaching our position. Massive ships, unlike anything in our databases. They're not responding to our communications. We're trying to evacuate, but... Oh God, they're doing something to our people. They're taking them. The ships are... They're harvesting our people. Someone help us. Please, someone..." The signal cut to static. Jack felt ice in his veins. This was exactly what Danny Wright had warned him about. Whatever was attacking the outer colonies had found another target. "How far is Kepler Station?" Jack asked. 6 hours by fast transport, Lisa replied. "I'm getting a rescue team ready. I'm coming with you." Lisa shook her head. "Jack, you're retired. You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do," Jack said quietly. "These people need help, and I have experience with unknown threats. Besides, you'll need every hand you can get." 20 minutes later, Jack found himself back on a military vessel for the first time in 5 years. The USS Defender wasn't a warship, just a colony patrol ship, but it felt familiar. The hum of the engines, the smell of recycled air, the quiet tension of a crew preparing for danger. The rescue team was small but skilled. Lisa commanded the mission with her usual calm competence. Chief Bobby Martinez handled the ship's weapons systems. Dr. Karen Williams, the colony's medical officer, prepared the medical bay for possible casualties. Tony Lee, the colony's best engineer, checked all the ship's systems twice as they traveled. Through hyperspace, Jack found himself falling back into old patterns. He studied the tactical displays, analyzed potential threats, and planned for different scenarios. It felt natural, like putting on comfortable old clothes. But it also felt wrong. He had promised himself he would never do this again. "You okay?" Lisa asked, sitting down beside him. "He's just thinking," Jack replied. 5 years of peace, and now this." "Maybe it's nothing," Lisa said. "Maybe Pete Jackson panicked over a misunderstanding? Maybe the communication was garbled and we heard wrong." Jack wanted to believe her, but his instincts told him otherwise. Something was very wrong at Kepler Station. They dropped out of hyperspace near the mining station. At first, everything looked normal. The station was intact, its lights were on, and there were no signs of battle. No debris, no scorch marks, no destroyed ships. "This is the USS Defender calling Kepler Station," Lisa broadcast. "Please respond." Silence. "Kepler Station, this is Commander Carter from New Eden Colony. We received your distress call. Please respond immediately." Still, nothing. Dr. Williams ran sensor scans of the station. "I'm reading normal atmosphere, normal gravity, all systems operational. But I'm not detecting any life signs." "None at all?" Jack asked. "Nothing. No humans, no Zephyrians, not even any small animals. It's like the station is completely empty." They docked with the station and prepared to board. Jack had brought his old sidearm, a plasma pistol he hadn't touched in years. It felt heavy in his hand, heavier than he remembered. The boarding party consisted of Jack, Lisa, Chief Martinez, and 2 security officers. They entered through the main airlock and immediately noticed how quiet everything was. Space stations were usually noisy places, full of machinery humming and people talking. This one was silent as a tomb. The main corridor looked perfectly normal. The lights were on, the air was clean, and everything was in its proper place. But there were no people anywhere. "This is creepy," muttered Officer Jake Collins, one of the security guards. They made their way to the command center. The computer screens were still active, showing normal operational data. According to the logs, the station had been running normally until 3 hours ago, when all entries suddenly stopped. "Look at this," Lisa said, pointing to a security monitor. "The last entry shows 847 people on the station. Humans and Zephyrians working together, just like on New Eden." Jack studied the security footage. People going about their daily work, mining operations proceeding normally, everything peaceful and routine. Then, at exactly 14:32 station time, the footage simply ended. "Where did they go?" Dr. Williams asked over the radio from the ship. "That's what we need to find out," Jack replied. They searched the station room by room. The living quarters were undisturbed. Meals sat half-eaten on tables. Personal belongings were still in their places. It was like everyone had simply vanished. In the middle of their daily activities, in the mining section, they found something strange. The main extraction chamber was filled with odd crystalline structures that hadn't been there before. They were about the size of a person and glowed with a soft blue light. They pulsed gently, like they were alive. "I've never seen anything like this," Chief Martinez said, scanning one of the crystals with his equipment. "They're giving off some kind of energy signature, and there's something else. The scanners are detecting traces of human and Zephyrian DNA inside these things." Jack felt his blood run cold. "Are you saying these crystals contain people?" "I don't know, maybe the readings are confusing. It's like the DNA is there, but transformed somehow." Before anyone could respond, they heard a sound from deeper in the mining section. It was a low humming noise, like machinery starting up. But it didn't sound like any machine Jack had ever heard. "Everyone stay alert," Lisa ordered, raising her weapon. They moved toward the sound, following the main mining tunnel. The humming grew louder as they went deeper. And then they saw it. The creature was unlike anything in human experience. It was about 8 feet tall and seemed to be made of both metal and organic material. Its body shifted and flowed like liquid, but it moved with mechanical precision. Its eyes, if they could be called eyes, glowed with the same blue light as the crystals. "What is that thing?" Officer Collins whispered. The creature turned toward them, and Jack realized it had been aware of their presence all along. It moved with incredible speed, gliding across the floor without making a sound. When it raised one arm, energy crackled between its fingers. "Move!" Jack shouted. The creature fired a beam of blue energy that barely missed Lisa's head. The beam struck the wall behind her, and the metal simply vanished. Leaving a perfectly smooth hole, the team scattered, taking cover behind mining equipment. The creature advanced slowly, scanning the area with its glowing eyes. It seemed to be studying them, learning about them. Chief Martinez fired his plasma rifle at the creature. The shot hit it square in the chest, but instead of causing damage, the energy was absorbed into its body. The creature's glow grew brighter. Our weapons aren't working. Martinez shouted. The creature raised both arms and fired multiple energy beams. Jack dove behind a heavy mining cart as the beams disintegrated everything they touched. This wasn't a battle they could win. We need to get out of here, Jack called to the others. Fall back to the ship. They retreated through the mining tunnels, the creature following slowly behind them. It didn't seem to be in any hurry, like it knew they couldn't escape. As they ran, Jack noticed something important. The creature had been scanning them with some kind of sensor beam. It was studying their biological signatures, learning about human and Zephyrian physiology. They reached the main corridor and ran for the airlock. Behind them, the creature's humming grew louder. Jack was the last one through the airlock, and he caught a glimpse of the creature just before the door sealed shut. It wasn't chasing them anymore. It was just standing there, watching them leave. Get us out of here, Lisa shouted to the bridge crew. The USS Defender undocked from the station and moved to a safe distance. Jack stood at the view screen, watching the mining station grow smaller. Whatever that creature was, it hadn't tried to stop them from leaving. It had let them go on purpose. The USS Defender arrived back at New Eden to find the colony in chaos. Emergency lights flashed everywhere, and people were running in all directions. Jack's heart sank when he saw military ships landing in the fields around the settlement. Many warships only meant one thing. The situation was much worse than anyone had thought. Admiral Karen Stone was waiting for them at the landing pad. Jack had known Karen during the war. She was tough, smart, and never panicked. But today, her face was pale, and her hands shook slightly as she greeted them. Admiral Morrison, she said, using his old rank. Thank God you're back. We need to talk immediately. Just Jack, he replied, but his voice sounded tired. What's happened? Karen led them to a secure briefing room that had been set up in the colony's town hall. The walls were covered with star charts and tactical displays. The news was worse than Jack had feared. 17 more colonies have gone dark in the past 12 hours, Karen said. The attacks are spreading faster than we can track them. Whatever these things are, they're not just random raiders. They're moving in a pattern, cutting off our outer defenses and isolating the inner colonies. Jack studied the star charts. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. The attacks were systematic, planned, and terrifyingly effective. The enemy was cutting humanity's territory into smaller and smaller pieces. What about the Zephyrians? Lisa asked. Are they being attacked too? Karen nodded grimly. Their colonies are disappearing just like ours. Supreme Commander Zethkar contacted me this morning. They're just as confused and scared as we are. Any idea what we're dealing with? Jack asked. That's where it gets really bad, Karen said. She activated a holographic display showing the mining station they had just visited. 3 hours after you left Kepler Station, it was completely destroyed. Not damaged, not conquered, destroyed. The entire station was reduced to atoms. Jack felt cold. They were covering their tracks. It gets worse. We managed to recover some data from the station's backup files before it was destroyed. Dr. Collins, our xenobiology expert, analyzed the information about those crystal structures you found. A tall woman with gray hair stepped forward. Admiral Morrison, what you discovered at Kepler Station is beyond anything we've seen before. Those crystals don't just contain DNA, they contain complete consciousness patterns. The missing people aren't dead. They're trapped inside those structures, fully aware but unable to move or communicate. The room fell silent. Jack felt sick to his stomach. All those people, trapped and conscious, unable to do anything but experience whatever the aliens were doing to them. How many people are we talking about? He asked quietly. Based on the colonies that have gone dark, at least 3 million humans and Zephyrians, Dr. Collins replied. And the number is growing every hour. Admiral Stone activated another display. Jack, I know you retired from military service. I know you want to live in peace. But we need you back. The Defense Council has voted unanimously to offer you command of the combined fleet, every ship we have, human and Zephyrian, under your authority, Jack stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see his farm in the distance. The corn was ready for harvest, and the apple trees were heavy with fruit. Just this morning, he had been planning to teach his class about the moons of Jupiter. Now, he was being asked to command the largest military force in human history. There must be other officers who can handle this, he said. General Martinez has a good record. Admiral Peterson knows fleet tactics. Jack, Karen said softly, Martinez is missing. His ship was investigating the attacks near Tau Ceti when it disappeared. Peterson's entire battle group was wiped out, trying to defend the Proxima colonies. You're not just our best choice, you're our only choice. Jack closed his eyes. He had promised himself he would never again send young people to die in space battles. He had promised to live peacefully and let others handle the galaxy's problems. But how could he keep that promise when millions of innocent people were trapped in alien crystals, fully conscious and suffering? I need to think, he said. We don't have time, Admiral Stone replied. The attacks are accelerating. Based on the pattern, they'll reach the inner colonies within days. Earth itself could be a target within the week. Before Jack could respond, the emergency sirens began wailing again. A young officer ran into the room, his face white with terror. Admiral Stone, we're receiving a distress signal from New Eden Station. They're under attack? Everyone rushed to the command center. The main screen showed the orbital station that protected New Eden Colony. It was a small facility, mostly used for traffic control and weather monitoring. But now it was surrounded by massive alien ships. The ships were unlike anything Jack had ever seen. They were huge, at least 3 times the size of the largest human battleships. Their hulls seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, and they pulsed with the same blue light as the crystals at Kepler Station. New Eden Station, this is Admiral Stone, Karen broadcast. What's your status? The reply came through heavy static. Admiral, this is Captain Roy Banks. The alien ships appeared out of nowhere. They're not responding to communications. They're launching some kind of boarding pods. On the screen, Jack could see small craft leaving the alien ships and heading toward the station. They moved with unnatural speed and precision. Captain Banks, evacuate the station immediately, Admiral Stone ordered. We're trying, but the escape pods won't launch. Something is interfering with our systems. Wait, they're boarding us now. I can see them in the corridors. They're not like anything Oh God, they're coming for the bridge. They're coming for us. The signal cut to static. Jack watched in horror as the alien ships began to glow brighter. Energy beams connected the ships to the station, and he could see the station's hull beginning to change. Strange crystal structures were growing on its surface, the same kind they had found at Kepler Station. How long before they reached the colony? Jack asked. At their current speed, maybe 6 hours, replied the tracking officer. Jack turned to Admiral Stone. How many ships do we have in the system? Just the Defender and 2 patrol boats. The nearest battle group is 8 hours away. That's not enough time, Jack said. He looked around the room at the scared faces of the people who had come to depend on him. These weren't soldiers. They were farmers, teachers, shop owners. They had families, dreams, lives they wanted to protect. Admiral Stone, I accept command of the combined fleet, Jack said quietly. But I'm not doing this as a military officer. I'm doing this as someone who wants to protect innocent people. Karen smiled with relief. Thank you, Jack. The fleet will be ready to move in 12 hours. That's too long, Jack replied. We need to buy time, and we need to evacuate New Eden. Now, Lisa stepped forward. Jack, you can't be thinking of fighting those ships with just the Defender. I'm not thinking of fighting them, Jack said. I'm thinking of delaying them. If we can slow them down, give the evacuation ships time to arrive, we might save most of the colony. That's suicide, Dr. Collins said. You saw what happened to the station. Those ships can turn matter into crystal. They can absorb energy weapons. How can you possibly fight them? Jack was quiet for a moment, studying the tactical display. Then he had an idea. It was dangerous, maybe impossible, but it might work. During the war with the Zephyrians, we learned that every enemy has a weakness, he said. Even if we can't destroy them, we might be able to confuse them, make them stop and think. That could buy us the time we need. The next hour was a blur of activity. Evacuation ships were called in from nearby colonies. The USS Defender was loaded with every weapon they could find. Most importantly, Jack had the ship's computers loaded with every piece of data they had collected about the alien technology. As they prepared to launch, Lisa pulled Jack aside. You don't have to do this. You could help coordinate the evacuation from the ground. No, Jack said. I've seen what these things do to people. I've seen those crystals. I won't let that happen to anyone else if I can help it. Then I'm coming with you. Lisa, this is probably a one-way trip, she smiled. Then I guess we'll go together. Besides, you need someone to keep you from doing anything too crazy. As the USS Defender lifted off from New Eden, Jack looked down at his farm one last time. The corn was still swaying in the wind, and the apple trees were still heavy with fruit. Maybe he would never see it again. Maybe this was the end of his peaceful life, but as he watched the alien ships growing larger on the view screen, Jack realized something important. Peace wasn't just about avoiding conflict. Sometimes peace meant fighting for the people you cared about, even if it cost you everything. The war had found him again, but this time, Jack Morrison was ready. The USS Defender raced through space toward the alien ships surrounding New Eden Station. Jack stood on the bridge, watching the massive vessels grow larger on the view screen. Up close, they were even more terrifying than he had imagined. Each ship was at least 2 miles long, covered in the same shifting metal that seemed alive. Sensors are picking up strange energy readings, reported Chief Martinez from his station. These ships aren't using any kind of propulsion we understand. They're just floating there like they're defying the laws of physics. Any sign of weapons? Lisa asked. That's the weird part, Martinez replied. I'm not detecting any traditional weapon systems, no missile tubes, no energy cannons, nothing. But given what happened to the station, they definitely have some way to fight. Jack studied the tactical display. The alien ships had positioned themselves in a perfect sphere around the captured station. It wasn't a random formation. It was deliberate, planned, like they were performing some kind of ritual. Commander Carter, open a channel to all frequencies. Jack ordered. Channel open, Admiral. Jack took a deep breath. Unknown vessels. This is Admiral Jack Morrison of the Human Defense Fleet. You have attacked a peaceful station and captured innocent people. We demand that you release them immediately and withdraw from this system. They waited. The only response was silence. Try again, Jack said. All frequencies, all languages, including Zephyrian. Lisa repeated the message in every language the ship's computer knew. Still nothing. Sir, Martinez said quietly, they're moving. On the screen, the alien ships began to shift position. They moved slowly but with perfect coordination, like parts of a single organism. Instead of facing the Defender, they turned their attention back to the captured station. Jack realized with horror what they were doing. They're ignoring us completely. We're not even worth their attention. The alien ships began to glow brighter. Energy beams connected them to the station, and Jack could see more crystal structures growing on the station's hull. Whatever process they were using to capture people, they were accelerating it. We have to do something, Lisa said. Jack made a decision that went against everything he had learned about military tactics. Take us directly toward the nearest alien ship. Full speed. Sir? The pilot asked, unsure he had heard correctly. Do it. If they want to ignore us, let's see how they react when we get right in their face. The Defender accelerated toward the massive alien vessel. As they approached, Jack could see details on the ship's hull that made his skin crawl. The metal surface was covered in patterns that looked almost like veins, pulsing with blue light. And embedded in the hull were what looked like windows or viewing ports, but instead of glass, they were filled with the same crystal material they had found at Kepler Station. My God, Dr. Williams whispered over the radio. Jack, there are Faces in those crystals, human and Zephyrian faces. They're conscious. They're aware of what's happening to them. Jack felt sick. The ship's hull was covered with thousands of crystal windows, each one containing a trapped, conscious being. This wasn't just a ship, it was a mobile prison, distance to target. He asked. 1,000 meters and closing, the pilot reported. 500 meters. 200 meters. The alien ship finally reacted. It stopped its work on the station and began to turn toward the defender. Jack could see new crystal structures beginning to form on its hull, pointing in their direction. Evasive maneuvers. He shouted. The defender rolled to port just as a beam of blue energy shot from the alien ship. The beam missed them by less than 50 meters, but Jack could see what it did to the empty space where they had been. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist, creating a shimmering distortion that hurt to look at. "What was that?" Lisa asked. "Some kind of matter conversion?" "Beam," Chief Martinez replied. "If that had hit us, we would have been turned into crystal just like the people on the station." Jack studied the alien ship's movements. It was powerful, but it seemed slow to react, like it was thinking carefully about each action instead of responding by instinct. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison," he broadcast on the fleet frequency. "I'm engaging the alien vessels near New Eden. All available ships, converge on my position immediately." "Admiral, the nearest ships are still 6 hours away," the communications officer reported. "Then we hold for 6 hours," Jack replied. The alien ship fired again, and again the defender dodged. But Jack noticed something important. The ship didn't try to pursue them or surround them. It fired once, waited, then fired again. Like it was testing them, studying their responses. "They're learning from us," he realized. "Every time we dodge, they're figuring out how we move. Every time we fire back, they're analyzing our weapons. So what do we do?" Lisa asked. Jack smiled grimly. "We teach them the wrong lessons." 4. The next hour, Jack led the alien ships in a careful dance. He would approach one ship, forcing it to stop its work on the station and focus on the defender. Then he would retreat, leading it away from the station while avoiding its energy beams. When the ship tried to return to its work, he would attack again. It was working. The aliens were spending more time chasing the defender than converting the station. But Jack knew they couldn't keep it up forever. The ship's weapons were useless against the alien technology, and their fuel wouldn't last much longer. Then something unexpected happened. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission," the communications officer announced. "It's from the alien ship." "Put it through," Jack ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was unlike anything Jack had ever heard. It was cold, mechanical, but somehow still alive. When it spoke, the words seemed to bypass his ears and go straight into his mind. "Human vessel," the voice said. "You are interfering with our collection process. Withdraw immediately or be harvested." Jack activated the reply channel. "We will not withdraw. Release the people you have captured and leave this system. The biologicals you call people are being preserved. Their consciousness will exist forever within our collective. This is a gift. You should be grateful." "Grateful?" Jack couldn't hide his anger. "You're kidnapping innocent people and trapping them in crystals. That's not a gift. That's torture. Biological life is temporary, weak, fragile. We offer permanence, perfection. Why do you resist?" Jack thought about his farm on New Eden, about the children in his class, about Lisa and all the people he cared about. Because temporary doesn't mean worthless. Because our lives have meaning precisely because they don't last forever. Because the choices we make in our short time matter more than any artificial immortality. The alien voice was quiet for a moment. "You speak of choice. The biologicals in our collective chose preservation when faced with extinction." "They chose it because you gave them no other option," Jack replied. "Real choice means having the freedom to say no." "Interesting. We will consider your words while we complete the harvest." The transmission ended, and the alien ships resumed their work on the station. But Jack noticed that they were moving more slowly now, like they were thinking about what he had said. "Admiral," Chief Martinez called out. I'm picking up new contacts. On long-range sensors, multiple ships incoming at high speed. Jack felt hope for the first time in hours. Human ships? Human and Zephyrian, Martinez confirmed. It looks like the entire combined fleet is coming. On the view screen, Jack could see dozens of ships dropping out of hyperspace. Human cruisers, Zephyrian destroyers, supply ships, medical vessels, the largest fleet he had ever commanded, was assembling around New Eden. Admiral Stone's voice came through the communications system. Admiral Morrison, this is Admiral Stone. Aboard the USS Vengeance. The combined fleet is at your disposal. Jack looked at the massive alien ships, then at his own fleet. Even with all these ships, they were still outnumbered and outgunned? But for the first time since this crisis began, they had a real chance to fight back. Admiral Stone, prepare for fleet action, Jack ordered. But remember, our primary goal isn't to destroy these ships. It's to rescue the people trapped inside them. Understood, sir. What are your orders? Jack studied the tactical display one more time. The alien ships were powerful, but they were also predictable. They had patterns, strategies, weaknesses, and most importantly, they had underestimated humanity's determination to protect their own. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison, he broadcast to the fleet. Today we face an enemy unlike any we've encountered before. They believe they can harvest our people like crops. They believe we'll surrender when faced with their superior technology. They're wrong. Jack paused, thinking about the long journey that had brought him to this moment. From a peaceful farmer to the commander of humanity's greatest fleet, the people trapped on that station are counting on us. The colonies they've already captured are counting on us. Every human and Zephyrian in the galaxy is counting on us. We will not let them down. He took a deep breath. All ships, attack formation. Target the energy beams connecting the alien ships to the station. If we can break their connection, we might be able to disrupt whatever process they're using. As the combined fleet moved into attack position, Jack realized that this was just the beginning. Even if they won this battle, even if they rescued the people from the station, the real war was still ahead of them. The battle for New Eden Station began with a thunderous roar of engines as the combined fleet charged toward the alien ships. Jack watched from the bridge of the USS Vengeance as hundreds of human and Zephyrian vessels opened fire simultaneously. Plasma beams and energy torpedoes lit up space like a deadly fireworks display, but their weapons had little effect. The alien ships absorbed most of the energy attacks, their hulls glowing brighter with each hit. The few projectile weapons that struck them simply bounced off the shifting metal surface. "Sir, our weapons aren't penetrating their defenses," reported Commander Alex Brown, Jack's new tactical officer. He was young but smart, and Jack could see the frustration in his eyes. "Keep firing," Jack ordered. "Even if we can't hurt them, we need to keep their attention away from the station." The alien ships began to respond to the attack. Energy beams lanced out from their hulls, and wherever they struck a human or Zephyrian ship, the result was catastrophic. The USS Liberty took a direct hit and simply vanished, its crew of 400 people converted to crystal in an instant. "All ships, evasive patterns," Jack commanded. "Don't let them get a clean shot." The fleet scattered, using every trick they knew to avoid the alien weapons. But the enemy was learning quickly. Each shot came closer than the last. Dr. Luna Martinez, the fleet's chief science officer, had been studying the alien ships since the battle began. She suddenly looked up from her instruments with excitement. "Admiral, I think I've found something," she said. "The energy beams connecting the ships to the station, they're not just harvesting people. They're also maintaining the aliens' power. If we could disrupt those beams... the ships would lose power?" Jack asked. "Maybe, or at least it might slow down their harvesting process." Jack studied the tactical display. The energy beams formed a complex web between the alien ships and the station. Breaking them would require precise shots from multiple angles. "Commander Brown, select our best marksman. I want targeting solutions for every energy beam simultaneously." Sir, that would require perfect coordination. If even one ship misses, then we better not miss, Jack replied. The next few minutes were tense as the fleet maneuvered into position. The alien ships continued firing and more human vessels were destroyed. The USS Freedom, the Zephyrian destroyer Swift Strike, the transport vessel Hope, good ships with good crews, all converted to crystal. All ships in position, Brown reported. On my mark, Jack said. 3:1 fire. Every ship in the fleet fired at once, targeting the energy beams connecting the alien vessels to the station. For a moment, space was filled with weapons fire. Then, one by one, the energy beams began to flicker and fail. The alien ships immediately stopped their attack on the fleet and turned their attention to re-establishing the connection to the station. But the damage was done. The harvesting process had been interrupted. It's working, Dr. Martinez exclaimed. The crystal growth on the station has stopped? But their victory was short-lived. The largest alien ship, the one that had first spoken to Jack, began to change. Its hull shifted and flowed, growing new weapon ports and energy projectors. When it fired again, the beam was twice as powerful as before. The beam struck the USS Defender, Lisa's ship. Jack watched in horror as his oldest friend's vessel began to glow with blue light. He could see the hull starting to change, crystal structures beginning to form. "Lisa!" he shouted into the radio. "Lisa, respond!" Static filled the channel for long moments. Then Lisa's voice came through, weak but clear. "Jack, the ship is converting around us. The crystal is spreading through the hull. We don't have much time." "We're coming to get you," Jack said, turning the vengeance toward the Defender. "No," Lisa replied firmly. "You can't risk the flagship. Besides, I think I've figured out how to hurt these things." "What do you mean?" "The crystal conversion process, it works both ways. If I can overload our power core at the right moment, when the conversion is almost complete, the feedback might damage their ship." Jack felt cold. "Lisa, that's suicide." "Maybe, but it might save everyone else." "Jack, remember what you told me about peace? Sometimes it requires warriors. Sometimes it requires sacrifice." Before Jack could respond, Lisa cut the communication channel. On the view screen, he could see the Defender accelerating toward the largest alien ship. The vessel was almost completely converted to crystal now, glowing like a blue star. "All ships, clear the area around the Defender," Jack ordered, his voice thick with emotion. The explosion, when it came, was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. The Defender's power core overloaded just as Lisa had planned, but instead of a normal explosion, the ship erupted in a cascade of white light that spread through the alien vessel's hull. For the first time since the battle began, one of the massive ships showed real damage. The alien ship's hull cracked and split, blue fluid leaking out into space. Its weapons stopped firing and the crystal structures on its surface began to flicker and dim. "She did it," Dr. Martinez whispered. "The feedback from the conversion process damaged their ship." Jack stood in silence for a moment, honoring his friend's sacrifice. Then he turned back to the battle. Lisa had shown them how to hurt the enemy, but at a terrible cost. "All ships' new battle plan," he announced. "Target the partially converted vessels first. Overload their power cores during the conversion process. It's our only effective weapon against them." The battle continued for hours. The human and Zephyrian fleets used every ship they could spare as weapons, sacrificing vessels and crews to damage the alien ships. It was a brutal strategy, but it was working. One by one, the massive alien vessels began to show damage, but the cost was enormous. By the time the last alien ship was destroyed, half the combined fleet was gone. Thousands of brave men and women, human and Zephyrian alike, had given their lives to protect the innocent people trapped in the alien crystals. As the debris settled, Dr. Martinez made an important discovery. The crystal structures on the damaged alien ships were beginning to release their prisoners. The conversion process could be reversed if the ships were destroyed quickly enough. "Admiral, we're detecting life signs inside the crystal formations," she reported. "The people are still alive, and they're being freed from the alien control." Rescue ships immediately launched toward the damaged station and the destroyed alien vessels. Over the next several hours, they managed to rescue nearly 2,000 people who had been trapped in the crystal structures. They were weak and traumatized, but alive. Among the rescued was Captain Pete Jackson from Kepler Station. He was barely conscious, but he managed to give Jack crucial information about the aliens' origins. "They're not from this galaxy," he whispered. "I saw ... while I was trapped ... I saw their memories. They're ancient, older than any civilization we know. They came here from somewhere far away, following signals from our radio transmissions." "How many more of them are there?" Jack asked. Pete's eyes were haunted. "Millions of ships. This was just a scouting force. The main fleet is still coming." Jack felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. Somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, an ancient enemy was preparing to harvest every living being in the Milky Way, but they had also learned something important. The aliens could be defeated. Their technology wasn't perfect, and their arrogance was a weakness. Most importantly, they had underestimated the human capacity for sacrifice and the bonds between different species working together, standing on the bridge of the Vengeance, looking out at the wreckage of the battle. Jack realized that his peaceful days were truly over. He would never again tend his farm on New Eden or teach children about the stars, but perhaps that was okay. Perhaps this was his real purpose, to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. He thought about Lisa's sacrifice, about all the brave people who had died to protect others. They had chosen to give their lives so that others could live free. That choice, that willingness to sacrifice for something greater than themselves, was what made them human. The aliens collected consciousness like trophies, believing that existence was all that mattered. But they didn't understand that life, without freedom, without choice, without the possibility of sacrifice for others, wasn't really life at all. Jack Morrison had promised peace, and the war had found him again. But this time he understood that some wars were worth fighting. Some enemies could only be stopped by those willing to stand against the darkness. No matter the cost, the real battle for the galaxy was just beginning, but humanity and their allies were ready. They had learned to fight not just for survival, but for the right to choose their own destiny, and that Jack realized was the most human thing of all.